Welcome to Two Coffees with the Truth. I'm Sammy, and this is my co-host Sophie. We're here to open up some discussion about some taboo topics in society. And first one we are going to be talking about is organized religion. Sophie and I both have experiences in our own religions that we grew up with. Hers being Jehovah's Witnesses, and mine in my early childhood Primitive Baptist, my teenage years non-denominational, which is really a denomination in and of itself, and then my early 20s Latter-day Saints or Mormon. We want everyone from any kind of organized religion to feel comfortable to participate in our discussions. We want you to be able to feel free to comment, ask questions by leaving them in our comments. And, if you want to be a guest on our show later on, that would be wonderful. We would love to have you here. We're going to start this off by Sophie sharing her experience growing up in the Jehovah's Witness organization.
So, first of all, coming together as a nation, coming together as a world, everyone coming together. We have to talk about subjects like this because if we don't, then we're not going to be able to learn from each other, and we're not going to be able to stop some of the horrendous things that are happening now, that are going on in all different types of religion. Whenever I was younger, we had to do a lot of memorizing. And so one of the scriptures that Jehovah's Witnesses would use a lot is Revelation 18:4 and 5. And that just basically says, come out of her, my people, so that you don't share with her in her sins. You don't receive her plagues, because her sins are piled up to heaven, and God has remembered her crimes. And I recall reading that scripture whenever I was younger, and Jehovah's Witnesses call all other religions false, with the exception of them.
That's interesting you say that, because growing up, not growing up so much, but when I was a part of the Mormon religion, they would say the same thing. Everything else was the false truth. It wasn't gospel. Mm-hmm. Only we knew the gospel because we had the Book of Mormon.
I've heard that out of the Baptist religion. I've heard some members say that.
Mm-hmm.
Catholics.
Mm-hmm. Lutheran. It's all organized religion.
Exactly.
Really.
And even Hinduism and Buddhism and Islam, they all claim that they have the right religion, mm-hmm. which is ironic. And we all need to start talking about that. We need to, because who has the right religion? How do we know what the right religion is? But if you go back to that scripture's talking about religion. And it says to get out so we don't receive her plagues, and further states that her sins are piled up to heaven and God's remembered her crimes. Well, what crimes? Crimes against humanity.
Absolutely.
Things that are going on right now. For how many centuries have people been murdered in the name of religion?
Mm-hmm.
So-called holy wars, the Crusades. The Persians attacked Armenia. They wanted to convert them to their fire god.
Right. And they all do it for one reason: power. They all want power. They're greedy.
Mm-hmm.
Very greedy.
Power, control, and money. And even the American Indians were told their way of worship was wrong. They needed to convert to the Puritan way mm-hmm. of Christianity. And it's so ironic that they did this because they fled England
yep.
to get away from Catholicism.
I know.
And then they came here and they did the same thing that England did to them, to the Indians.
Mm-hmm. It's disgusting.
Yeah. And so the thing is we have to wake up and we have to realize that unfortunately, these continuous religious wars that are going on, the separation that has been done to humanity mm-hmm. via religion, political affiliation, race, ethnicity, color, all the things, they put us in neat little boxes. And we have to come together. We have to start talking to one another. We have to have conversations about this. And we have to let people know that it's not okay for religions to abuse.
Right.
And once we educate ourselves as to who's in control of religion, we're going to be able to stand up in unison and say no more.
Well, they make you doubt your self-worth all the time
Absolutely.
because you feel wrong for having normal feelings and normal emotions. You know, it's wrong. It's, oh, you can't do that. And tell me what religion has a woman as an equal to a man.
Right.
I don't know of one. We're always discussed and taught to be as the second class citizen. I mean, it's the head of the household, it's the man, you know?
Oh, that's happened. A lot of my friends that are still in the religion have been abused by their spouse, and if they complain about it, they're read scriptures on how to be a better wife.
That's disgusting.
It is 100%.
Wow.
I mean,
And
go ahead. Sorry.
it makes us lose the sovereignty that we have, you know?
Because we're all sovereign beings.
Right. Because we're made in the image of God. That power, that higher power.
Right.
That both of us most definitely believe in. Because we don't believe in organized religion. Because, as you always say, religion needs man.
Man doesn't need religion.
Yep.
Well, separating religion from God is something that mankind is going to have to realize they need to do. Without people, religion would fail. It would absolutely fail. And as far as the fundamentalist organizations, religious groups, the things that they have been doing in secret is going to be exposed.
It already is starting to come out, and it has been for the last few years.
It's over for them.
And people are no longer willing to be blind sheep. We're not going to jump over that cliff. We're just not.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that we're here to do, is to talk about these topics and do so in a loving manner. We're not here to lambaste people. We're here to question what religious organizations are really doing to the people.
Exactly.
So
their motives. I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel... I'm very bothered by how religion always attacks women more than the men. And I say that because it's always taught that, oh, women are supposed to dress a certain way.
Be in subjection to their husbands.
And from being young up, we have to be modest and everything else. And it's always because you don't want to, give something for them to look at. You don't want to make them have inappropriate thoughts. Why aren't they taught, the men, as young boys, not to sexualize women?
Exactly.
And we can answer that. Because they're the people, the governing body, the higher ups in these organized religious groups, whatever you want to call
Board
them.
of directors.
Yep. They're all filthy with pedophilia, affairs, gay relations. And if they had to teach boys not to sexualize women or think inappropriate thoughts, then they would have to take ownership that what they're doing is wrong.
100%. Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons why that scripture in Revelation that said, get out of her so that you don't share with her in her sins and receive her plagues. That's why that scripture is so important. Because realizing that religion has a lot of faults. And it can be good. It can be good for community. But there are more problems in religion than what is being positive. I don't see a lot of positivity, especially in judgmental. They're very judgmental. Many religions are extremely judgmental. You can never do enough. The tithing,
Oh my gosh! Don't get me started on that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really rough. And whenever you're born into a cult, you literally don't have any idea that you are being indoctrinated. You don't know. It's mind control and brainwashing from birth. And with Jehovah's Witnesses, they had young children memorizing the books of the Bible, memorizing scriptures, taking them very early, door to door, proselytizing, knocking on people's doors. going to strangers' homes, telling them about the truth. The truth is what Jehovah's Witnesses call their message. And as a kid, I remember feeling so embarrassed going to people's doors because you could tell they did not want us to be there.
Oh, yeah. Well, they call it in the LDS church, it's called the gospel. And they call it trekking. And the people that share the gospel are young men, and they're called elders. And it's young women, and they're called sisters. And that's all they do for 2 years. And they can go to any country, anywhere they do the missionary work. But it's always, have you heard the story of the gospel? Can I share the gospel with you? And it's just super uncomfortable to talk about that. It's very invasive.
Oh, 100%. Whenever I was younger and I went door to door, I would be so embarrassed to knock on people's doors that I would literally, like around the age of 12, 13, I discovered my parents couldn't see me from the car, so they would let me out, and I would go to the door, and I would not knock on it. I didn't hit the wood or the door, or I would press beside the doorbell, and they couldn't tell that I wasn't ringing it from the car. So I would quickly leave a magazine in the door and then just hope that they didn't see me on their porch. But it's horrifying to, like, whenever you're in school, and you run into someone that you go to school with. They're like, "What are you doing here? Why are you dressed like that? What are you doing at my door?" It just was not something that I wanted to do. My parents didn't ask me, "Hey, do you want to do this?" It was forced. It was 100% forced. There was no option.
That's just wrong.
Oh, yeah. But according to Jehovah's Witnesses, they're in a life-saving work. Members are told that they have to go door to door, because if they don't, then they could be blood guilty before God, because they say they have the only religion and everybody has to know about the truth in order to survive Armageddon. The Armageddon they've predicted will come, but they've missed it over and over. So literally there's right now 3 generations of us that have been waiting for Armageddon to come, and it's not showing up. It's not coming. But
so what makes the truth? Like, what is it about Jehovah's Witnesses that you guys consider the truth?
There's a lot of different things that they do different and similar to other organized religions. They don't celebrate any holidays. They don't take blood transfusions. They have their own Bible. It's called the New World Translation of the Holy Scriptures.
Why does all these religions have different Bibles?
Well, the New World, whenever I think of that, I think of the New World Order.
It sounds like Star Wars or something.
Right? And
but like the LDS Church has the King James Version Bible, but then attached to it its own stuff. The Book of Mormon, the Articles of Faith, just different ones. I can't remember them all right now.
Right.
But then you have the King James Version Bible, the New International Version. Like, what is all that? Like,
well,
how much is true? Because how many times has it been written?
Well, and if you think about King James, he wasn't King James. He was King Henry. So, he wasn't a very nice human being. And so it's his version, the King James Version. It's his version. So how do we know? There's so many books that have not been included in the Bible. So there's a lot of questions about a lot of things. But the one thing is, we have to get these religions that have kept their teachings in the dark for such a long period of time to open up. Just like Jehovah's Witnesses, they've been saying Armageddon's going to come, Armageddon's going to come. And they teach people a way of life that does not benefit them, and in fact causes more harm than good. They are very smug, arrogant, prideful, egotistical individuals, and they have no problem telling you, no, that scripture does not mean that, it means this. Looking back, I wonder how my parents didn't understand and contemplate get cognitively that they were doing the bidding of men in New York. I don't understand how they didn't
Wow.
get that. But Jehovah's Witnesses say they're the only ones in this life-saving work. So, there are other religions. Baptists go to different countries, and they build homes. So Jehovah's Witnesses are not the only ones that
and
does that.
LDS do things,
Mm-hmm.
and they do the work of the dead in temples.
So Jehovah's Witnesses say, well, others may do it, but we do it on a larger scale. So it proves we have God's backing, which is just a crock of shit. I mean, it is.
So, like, doesn't
Mm-hmm.
that defeat the purpose of being godly? I mean, that's just greedy, nasty, just doesn't sound pure.
Well, and how do they think Christianity was brought to places like the Middle East, Africa, the Orient, and even to America? Remember, the Puritans came and it was like, no, you guys have to convert. Your little circle of life thing that you have going on, it's sweet, but no, you need to convert to the true God. That this is happening over and over and over again, and why aren't we seeing the pattern? Why aren't we waking up to this?
Yeah, I don't know.
So
It makes no sense. And then why don't we bring up that whole J in the Hebrew language? Let's talk about that for a second.
There's no J in the Hebrew language, so Jesus and Jehovah are not the proper names. So, how many J's are in the Bible?
A lot.
Yeah, you've got Jeremiah, John, Jonathan.
Job.
Yeah, there's a ton of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to wonder, in order to find out the names, I think it's a Sefer Bible you can go to and find
I
out
don't even know what that is.
the names. But if you're going to use someone's name, you should use their proper name. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I agree.
But I grew up thinking, and you don't know anything until you start looking outside of the religion, because they want everyone to ask questions to each other. They want, like, if you have a question regarding a doctrine, you don't look it up online. You go to an elder.
Wow.
Yeah, you ask questions to each other. You don't go outside. And they don't want you looking outside or doing any outside research.
Well, yeah,
protects them.
because that gives you power. It makes you question them. They don't have answers.
Right. There's a book called Crisis of Consciousness. I think Crisis of Consciousness. It was written by, I think his name was Franz. And whenever I was younger, I remember family talking about this book and saying, do not read it. Whatever you do not read it, because it will make you fall out of the truth. Okay, if something is the absolute truth, how can reading a book make you fall out of the truth? That is so psycho crazy.
When I was part of the non-denominational churches, it was my senior year of high school, and I'm in youth group, right? And I was the one that had to ask all the questions, and it would just piss him off. And I got satisfaction out of it. I can't lie. So when he was going on about Harry Potter's bad and it's written by a Wiccan, first of all, there's no proof for that. And, it's got witchcraft and wizardry in it, and there's real spells and blah, blah, blah.
You're using Latin. Oh, my God.
And, you're going to become, out of the religion. You're going to lose your faith if you become, a fan of Harry Potter. So I raise my hand up, and he's like, yes. And I say, so I have a question for you. Do you watch Disney movies? Well, yeah. Do your kids watch Disney movies? Yeah. Name one Disney movie that doesn't have some form of magic in it, sorcery in it, any of that kind of stuff, anything dark in it. He fumbled. I said, how is that any different? If your kids can watch that and not, lose their faith, what's different about a made-up children's book? It's just different. Oh, so we're just supposed to be blind sheep again.
Right.
And just be like, yes, sir.
Because you said so. You said so. Right. Well, the top rungs lies have perpetuated into a dependency of sheep on these top rung of men. So they're dependent on them. They, like the Jehovah's Witnesses will say, the governing body has our best interest at heart.
Okay.
No, not really. I mean, if they have their best interest at heart, they certainly have dumbed down their members so that even if they have a gut feeling that something is wrong, they just are told to do what they're told to do. Even if it doesn't seem right, go ahead and do it anyway. They are literally taking away their members' free will, their sovereignty. They're removing it, and they have no right to do so. It's imprinting. It's
It is.
setting the brain so that you do, that they're almost behaving in a robot-like fashion.
Yeah. I mean, weren't you telling me the other day, like, how you, when you were little, used to hate going to church or something?
Oh, absolutely. I despised it. I would cry and cry and cry. I hated it. I could tell that something was wrong. And I also didn't like to wear dress clothes. So whenever I would be going, my mom said by the time she got me out of the car, I had stripped down and taken off my socks and shoes and dress, and it was in the floorboard of the car.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, but as a child I could tell, and I would get so nervous, even just from a child all the way up, even to my teenage years. I would get so nervous right before I went
Wow.
to, they call them meetings, but they definitely do not encourage independent thinking. They say independent thinking is wrong because man can't direct their own steps. So you literally have to ask permission to do just about everything. But they're not the only ones. FLDS, extremist religions. Remember Warren Jeffs? He told they were the chosen ones. They were, going to inherit Zion, and it's the same terminology that they use. They're sheep. They need shepherding. They need someone to take care of them. But really, what they're doing is and proving themselves to be the wolves in sheep's clothing.
Well, okay. For one, they're very controlling. And they know without total control over us and keeping us hush-hush and out of secular things, so to speak, that's how they're gonna keep that power. It keeps us from questioning and, realizing things and our own power, and that, if we all stand together, we can revolt and maybe throw you over. That's their fear. And
losing control.
It absolutely is. And they keep us where they want us by this wonderful thing called tithing. Because they are profiting off of all that money.
Oh, 100%.
Which makes them powerful.
Right. 100%. And the fact of the matter is, my favorite scripture in the Bible is in Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 through 28. And God himself is speaking in this scripture. And he tells man who we are supposed to have dominion over or rule over. And it says basically that we're created in God's image, male and female. Doesn't say male is over female. It just says we're created in the image of God, male and female. And then we are over the animals. We are to govern, have dominion, be in subjection. The animals are who we're supposed to rule over. Nowhere does it say each other. And this is also shown in Jesus' day, whenever Jesus walked the earth, or Yeshua, whenever he walked the earth, he had nothing to do with the religious leaders. He called them offspring of vipers. He called them hypocrites. And what we're going to expose is a hypocrisy that is still going on today. And just like back in Yeshua's day, these religious leaders were basically worshipped. They walked around, they had big, huge chips on their shoulders. And
well, I mean, Jesus put it in perspective real quick when he was talking to the people, like, all the riches and that the pharaohs give for their tithing means nothing compared to the tithing of the poor, basically, because it's about what you're giving purely, with a pure heart, where they're, those religious leaders back then, it's for show. Oh, look at me. And, it just hasn't changed much.
No, and they're still begging. Jehovah's Witnesses are, if you ever watch their JW broadcasting, it's all about, we need more money, more money, more money, more money. And they even had a little cartoon where they do a Jacob and Sophia video segment, and they were telling the children to give their ice cream money. I mean, are you kidding me?
That's sad.
Seriously, that is, it's ridiculous. And the problem that I have with all this is we live in a time where information is readily available via the internet. And we can go online and we can do research on our own. We can go into these organizations and we can find out what are they doing with the money. If they're a nonprofit, are you able to get hold of their holdings? Because they should be available to the public. And if it's difficult to do so, why? If Jehovah's Witnesses confirm they have the truth and they're doing God's work correctly, keeping track of all of these records that they keep track of, proselytizing and handing out their literature, if they're able to do that, then surely they're able to take better care of their sheep.
I know.
And where are the records of the individuals that have reported pedophilia? That seems to be a big problem lately. It's all over. It's all over the news where victims are being granted millions of dollars compensation for being molested.
For staying quiet.
And it's this way in all religions.
And it's probably the tithing money. Because, I just know that tithing, I'm going to go back to tithing because that's like a sore subject for me, okay?
Yeah.
And it just really ties into organized religion and the greed that has infiltrated it.
Just go ahead and tell how much you were tithing.
Exactly. So back when we were members of the LDS Church, they expect you to tithe 10% of your income, and every year you have a meeting with the bishop. It's called the bishopric, which is just basically the leaders of that particular ward. Okay, usually every building has 3 wards, and it's all broken up into different times. We all go to the same building, but we're broken up in zip code areas so that we're more of a community, which I liked. That was a drawing factor. They're big on community. Okay, but anyway, so the bishopric, they all have regular jobs. It's not one of those they live off the salary of the Mormon people tithing. Instead, no, that money goes to the leaders, I'm pretty sure. The prophet, and I can't remember, but their version of the religious board of directors, basically. And we have to meet with the bishop, who talks to us about all of the things that we do in order to keep our temple card or get a temple card to go to temple, which is a celestial building, so to speak, where you perform acts for the dead, or you do your own commitments to God, and you get sealed and all this other stuff. We'll get into that later on, but it's a goal. If you're a good Mormon, an upstanding Mormon, to get the highest afterlife realm you'll be in for all eternity, you have to do these things. But yet they preach salvation is not by works. That seems a little contradicting. But anyway, so I had to make sure I was tithing every month 10%. Well, during that time, my husband was making a lot of money doing contractor work overseas. And that was $525 a month. So for all of those years that we were Mormon, during that time when I really could have used that money to save for when he was going to be coming back to stateside permanently and doing school full time, when I had to be the main, breadwinner, that would have been a nice cushion. But they stole that from us, saying, you'll be so blessed and you're doing it for God and blah, blah, blah. And really, they're just funding their own agenda. And, we see it with, evangelists on TVs. We know we make jokes about the ladies dripping in their jewelry. And you were just talking the other day about your governing body, which is what again?
They were, whenever they are on the jw.org, I don't know if they're still doing it or not because I've not watched them in a while, but several of them had Rolex watches. And it was really funny to watch a man in a Rolex watch get on there and beg for money. It was quite sickening. I found it nauseating, in fact. It's
they live very extravagantly, don't they? You were telling me how they have like nice cars, they go on trips.
They can basically do whatever they want. They have access to funds.
And it's gross because here we are, they tell us that we'll be blessed if we give all this, right? And I remember back when I was an active Mormon, this one sister, we call them sister, talked to me. And she's like, well, we might not always get any kind of financial blessing out of it. And we really haven't ever gotten one. I just take the fact that we all stay in good health as the blessing. And I'm like, that's humble, but it's like, really?
Maybe they just practice good hand washing.
Right? Right?
Yeah. Well, I know for me personally, whenever I was growing up, my truth is I was quite far from happy. And quite far from any form of normalcy. I got out, but there are millions of indoctrinated that would die for their cause because this is what they believe in. It's so sad they believe this because it's just like this with almost every corporation or even like the CDC or the Food and Drug Administration. They're telling you something, but they need to back stuff with proof. They need to back up their words with proof. And them just saying, no, you need to rely on what we're saying. This is the ultimate truth. Nobody else has the ultimate truth. It's a big lie, and every religion has fallen for it.
Yes, and my dad, he was big, especially, my parents met in the Primitive Baptist Church, okay? I grew up in the Primitive Baptist Church till I was about 8 years old. And when things kind of got ugly towards the end, my dad was questioning a lot of things. And the elders and the preacher, they weren't able to answer, really. And they would get angry. And they just kept saying, well, if you don't get your children baptized soon, then they're not going to go to heaven. They're going to be damned to hell. What if they died in a car accident? Your children will be damned to hell because you didn't get them baptized. And my parents were like, we want our kids to know what that even means and make an informed decision. They didn't like that because that promoted independent thinking. And because my dad was asking questions, which, maybe later on he'll come and share his story. They didn't, they just didn't want to promote any kind of independent thinking. And they threatened, salvation if you didn't attend church.
Like they have the authority
exactly
to withhold salvation from anyone. They have no authority.
And they always preach we have a sovereign God. Well, it sure doesn't sound like in a lot of these organized religions, because if we don't do X, Y, and Z, this is going to happen. But if it's an all-powerful God, I don't know. Don't you think it'll happen regardless? So, and we're made in his image. We're his children. So why would he want to purposely damn us to hell? That's my thought.
Well, exactly. These people that are so willing to die for their cause, that is so controlling, they need to think about that this is completely opposite of what our Creator wanted for his creation. He gifted us free will. We know what's right from wrong. If we just follow breaking it down to one simple rule: treat others the way you want to be treated.
Do unto others as you wish others to do unto you.
Exactly.
That's the golden rule.
If you don't want your home broken into, then don't break into somebody else's. If you don't want someone stealing...
It's all about love and respect. Respecting life.
It is.
And I'm sorry, but the Native Americans had it right with that part. They respected life.
Right. What I want for this corporation that I was raised in to give me back my childhood. I want my preteen years, my teenage years, young adulthood and adulthood, all the years that I wasted doing their bidding, that I was assured that there was going to be an Armageddon and I was going to survive and there was going to be this paradise on earth, which is never going to happen. It's not. I want my time back, and you know what? That's something they can't give me. And the one thing that is more valuable than money is your time, because you can't get it back.
No, you can't.
And I spent over 40 years of my life,
and that was with, not celebrating holidays, right? And
right.
Exactly. Can you explain exactly why you weren't allowed to celebrate holidays?
There was different reasons for each holiday, but just going into it briefly, they said that Christmas wasn't really even Jesus' birthday, but that's not, people don't, I think they're smart enough to realize there's been enough out there showing that Jesus wasn't born on December 25th, right. But it's a time for people to get together. It's a time for joy and happiness, and whenever you're one of Jehovah's Witnesses, the joy and happiness is sucked out of everything.
That's really sad.
There's really no joy and happiness. They will say, Jehovah's Witnesses are the happiest people on earth. Then why the hell are so many of you guys on antidepressants and benzodiazepines?
Yeah, that's.
I mean, how many are taking Valiums and Xanaxes and Klonopin and Ativan? There are so many people that are on antipsychotic drugs that it's not funny. So obviously there is something wrong. And I just have to say, in my mind, religion is kind of like DoorDash. We're completely capable of driving to a restaurant and picking up our own food. However, sometimes we're lazy, so we'll pay for someone to bring it to us, and you get what you pay for. Yeah. And whenever you're going to church and you're giving away your sovereignty, and you're giving money for someone else to say a prayer for you, for someone else to talk to God for you, we got to stop that.
We do.
We have to stop it. And so when religions become corporations and they tell the masses what to think and feel, they take away your God-given freedoms that you're born with, and them removing them, they have no authority nor moral or legal right to do so. They have no business taking away your freedoms.
Right.
And so people are going to have to come together, and it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses. We're also talking about saving children. And that means religions where 12-year-old girls are married off to 40-year-old men. We cannot allow that to happen.
Well, and also abusive relationships with women. Like, how many churchgoers, they get, holier than thou on Sunday, or they go confess their sins, and then they go out and beat the living crap out of their their, wife, or their kids. Or how many organized crime or crime organizations like the mafia, all that kind of stuff.
Big Catholics.
And what do? They go confess their sins to this priest, this other man who's just as dirty in sin as you are, who can somehow forgive you, saying, so many rosaries and Hail Marys and whatnot. Yeah. It's dumb. Why do people think this is okay? That, but I'm going to go to heaven because I went to confession, but I just murdered an entire family because, I'm in the mafia and I had my reasons.
Yeah. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses are very similar to that because they use shunning. I mean, you go and you confess sins, but then they do punishment. So their punishment is via disfellowshipping, public reproof, private reproof, removal of a position, like if you're in a position of authority, like a pioneer or a ministerial servant.
Wait, what's a pioneer?
Pioneer is someone who goes door-to-door proselytizing.
Oh.
Used to be 90 hours a week. They've reduced it to 70 hours a week. Yeah. And then they have auxiliary pioneering, which is a little less. I think it's 40 hours. It used to be, 60.
Where do you find time for this?
Well, exactly. And that's the thing with these organized religions. You can never do enough. I remember magazine articles coming out and saying, well, this woman was in an iron lung and she was a regular pioneer. She witnessed to all the doctors and nurses, and if she can pioneer, you can too. So it was like they would give you this and everybody would be questioning themselves, well, can I pioneer? I've got 3 kids. I've got a part-time job. My husband's working. Maybe I can, move things around my schedule so that I can start pioneering. And it just is, you're doing the bidding of men.
Well, and they teach you all the time to serve others. And if you take the time for self-care, and I know this is a huge thing I still struggle with, if you take the time for self-care, you're selfish. It's unholy, blah, blah, blah. Especially if you're a woman. Heaven forbid you need to take care of yourself. You're supposed to be taking care of your husband, the kids, the house. And if you're not, what's wrong with you?
And then you're expected to, bare minimum.
Serve God on top of it.
Exactly, but bare minimum, give 10 hours a month proselytizing. And so whenever I was younger, this would be my schedule. Starting on Sunday, I would go to the meeting. And then on Monday, I would prepare for the Tuesday meeting. We had an hour-long Tuesday meeting. And then on Wednesday, I would study for Thursday. Because there was a 2-hour meeting on Thursday. Yeah, or about an hour and 45 minutes. And then on Saturday, you go door-to-door proselytizing. And then you also have to study your Watchtower for Sunday.
Which Watchtower then?
The Watchtower is it's a publication they put out. Oh. And you would have question and answer after the public discourse.
The weekly reader for Jehovah's Witnesses?
Kind of, sort of, in a way. 100%. But it was the same stuff over and over presented in a different fashion. And you know the old saying, whenever you hear something over and over, it becomes the listener's truth.
Yes.
And so that is a form of brainwashing that has been going on.
Hello, cult. Brainwashing. That's what organized religion is.
Well, Hitler used that.
Yeah.
And
guess what? Hitler was quite charismatic, though, too, wasn't he?
Yes. And a lot of these elders are.
Yeah. Oh, God, yeah. I remember Thomas S. Monson was the prophet, the active prophet, when I was a member of the LDS Church. And he looked like a sweet old grandpa. He had the worst looking dentures ever. They did not fit his face. But he definitely was just this sweet old man that looks like he couldn't hurt a fly. And now they have this new prophet who looks like a grumpy old... You know those two Muppets that used to do the movie critiquing? He looks like the taller one. It's hilarious.
Right?
But anyway, sorry.
No, I mean, it's... Whenever people wake up and they realize this, a form of what we're talking about is literally in all religions, then maybe they'll start questioning. And just cognitively think about maybe Yeshua, Jesus, whenever he was on earth. How he separated himself from the religious leaders of the day because of how they acted. And think about how the religious leaders acted back then versus today. It is ironically the exact same thing. That you have religion in every form all over the United States and in all the different countries. And whenever everybody just sets religion aside, just put it to the side and come and let's just talk about stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what's right and what's wrong. Let's talk about how it's wrong to abuse a child in any way, shape, or form. It is wrong to marry a young girl off who is 12 or under. You don't do that to you don't marry him off to a 40-year-old man. It's wrong to abuse women. It's wrong to abuse your kids.
It's wrong to make somebody have a child after being raped. It's wrong to make somebody get married just because they had a child
or because they had sex. Some people felt like, and this was big in the Jehovah's Witness religion. There's no sex before marriage, and you can get in
most religions. Yeah,
quite a lot of trouble if you have sex before you get married, and some people. Whenever you're a teenager and you would normally be doing normal teenage stuff, you have hormones and you're getting to where exactly
you're still an animal.
You want to be around the opposite sex. Well, Jehovah's Witnesses aren't allowed to do that. So you have all these sexually repressed feelings.
And every religion you do though, it's everywhere.
Right.
They say that pornography is rampant amongst Mormons.
And that is so dangerous because it makes men view women as objects.
It sexualizes them once again.
And if you do studies on this, all of the psychopaths that have been serial murderers, the one thing they have in common is they were exposed to pornography at a very young age.
Wow.
And I know in the Jehovah's Witnesses religion,
That's right. Ted Bundy did that ploy.
That's right. And in the religion that I grew up in, there were a lot of young men that admitted to looking at pornography.
My first husband was addicted to pornography, and so much so that when my sister and I went on a trip out of state, he got on her school-issued laptop.
Oh, no.
She was a teacher.
Oh, no.
And viewed teenage pornography, and she had to have a friend of hers husband wipe out that computer because that would have put her in jail.
Wow.
That's how selfish it was. But get this, he was the leader of the worship band in the church we went to, and he led a home group too, which is like a Bible study. It was college age kids. Talk about a double life.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? That's all over. That is, Jehovah's Witnesses are eaten up with that type of thing, unfortunately. And so many children have been damaged.
If we didn't make it, I don't know why, religion is the only reason why we in America, at least, I can't speak for other countries because I've never been out of this country, but it has totally repressed basically us, like, it has made sexuality abnormal. That's what they haven't, I feel like in Europe it's a lot different there because it's not so taboo. It's not hush hush because they weren't, founded by Puritans, I guess. I don't know, but it's just something that's been so taboo so long in our culture that it's just left us feeling like it's wrong to have urges. It's wrong to act on things.
100%. And then also you've got a lot of these religions that don't talk about sex at all.
Right.
And so I recall watching a documentary about the FLDS, and one of the women was talking about how she had no idea what was going on, and whenever she got into bed, the very old man that she married just said to her, "Spread your legs," and that was it. She had no clue what was even happening because nobody talked to her about sex. No one.
That's horrible.
Yeah, 100%. And the advice that I got from my mom, that she got from her mother, was you have to perform your wifely duties. And I was like, gross. Don't talk to me about that.
Ew.
But ew. And then I was like, what does she mean by wifely duties? And she said, even if you don't feel like having sex and your husband wants sex, you have to give it to him. And they go by the scripture.
That lady, that oh my God, Michelle Duggar. She said something like, the one thing that only you can give your husband is sex. So basically, she's like, any woman can make your man a sandwich, but only you can give him sex. So anytime he wants it, you'll have sex. And I'm like, and that's how you get 19 children.
Exactly. But that's the way women are viewed. And I had a problem with that. And I was one that asked a lot of questions. And my parents didn't like it. They recognized it from early on. I remember having many discussions with my dad saying, how do you know this is the truth? What if you're wrong? And so I was questioning things from a young age. But again, women have taken a back seat. We've become sexualized, and this is just not right. We have to talk about these things. We have to expose them, and we have to say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm not going to be treated like a second-class citizen. What I have to say is valuable, and what
we all have to say is valuable.
100%.
I have stories I want to share because people need to hear the truth. They need to hear, and it's not just exclusive to women. Let me make that clear.
Right.
Everybody in organized religion is oppressed.
Oh, 100%.
Because we all are slaves to the higher ups in the religion organizations. That's all it comes down to. Once again, the root of all evil is greed.
Greed, power, and money.
And it all is stemmed by greed.
Right. And the sooner we realize this, and the sooner we take ourselves out of the boxes that they've put us in and realize we're sovereign beings, the sooner we do that, get out of it, step out of the box, and we come together because all of us basically want the same thing.
Yes.
We want to be happy. We want to be
Feel
with our
loved.
family. Exactly. Feel loved. Be loved. Help
Be
contribute.
accepted.
Exactly. Help contribute to humanity. Help your neighbor if they need help. We all need each other. We don't
do.
need religion. We need each other.
We've been taught for so long that it's bad to have to rely on people. You should be independent. Well, when they made that happen, they broke community. Back in the 50s, they used to have community picnics and all these sorts of things. You knew your neighbors. It was part of life to take care of one another. It was just a way of life, and they've stripped down that family unit. And by stripping down the family unit, you've broken our society.
100%, absolutely. And we see it over and over and over again. And this is why we want to have conversations like this. And next time, whenever we get together, we can do another deep dive into this. And if people want to leave their comments, or if they have something to say, if they want to share their experience about the religion they were raised in, we would love to hear from everyone, like you had said at the beginning. But we have to start talking. We have to start communicating. And this is why we're starting our channel. Is there anything else you want to add?
I just want to definitely reiterate to you guys out there that we're not bitter as far as believing in a higher power. We both believe in a higher power very much. We both believe it's a very personal relationship you share with whatever higher power you believe in, and you have your own independent way of worshiping and communicating with that higher being. And that's why we don't need the third party, the religion.
Right.
And I just want to let you guys know that on our next coffee date here, Sophie is going to delve somewhat deeper into her story about growing up as a Jehovah's Witness and talking about the depths of control that the governing body, which is the leaders of the JW religion, has over its congregation. And that's, common amongst many other organized religions. Thanks for joining us today, and we love to hear from you soon.
See you next time.